Hello and welcome to my Dark Expedition Level 3 auto guide. I hope I can cover a good amount of team combinations which may help you build a good auto team. So let me start with a mandatory thing, only for high score of course. And that is having Tamarin and having her on 100% effect resist. If you ask why 100% effect resist, it is because the cannon during the boss fight exactly has 0% effectiveness. So with that you are not getting a cooldown increase on your Tamarin and she always has her skills. So let's talk about her artifact. The best artifact for her on Dark Expedition is Magahara's Tome, because that lets her cycle an insane amount of turns. But if you're using her elsewhere, she might not work as good anymore. As example, in other expedition teams, Magahara's Tome wouldn't work that well. So besides that, you can use Celestine, which still does a great job. What stats do you want to aim for? On top of the effect resist, you want to get at least around 200 speed, around 14 to 16k HP. The more HP the better, because it gives you more healing, and some def. It doesn't have to be that high if you have high HP already, and it's also useful to have up to 85% effectiveness to remove the boss's death buff. So let's talk about our frontline. The best units in the spot there are Lilias, Fluri and Ares, whereas Lilias provides more damage thanks to her dual strikes and Fluri more death breaks. Raz can work as well while he provides a bit more survivability and removes the boss's death buff as well, and has a chance of getting a defense break in. Whether you run Lilias with her skills on or off is up to you. Artifacts you can use are either to increase the damage outcome of your entire team, like Super Duper Water Gun Shooter, Card of Small Miracles, or Midnight Bloom to get enough crit rate with your team or get more damage stats while reducing crit rate. Depending on if your team has enough survivability, Adamant Shield or Aureus can help. Or if your knight needs more survivability, Sword of Iseria can help as well. But you should be cautious with Aureus, since it could make your knight take too much damage. What you want to aim for is having high def. That's why I say like you want to have at least like 1.5k to 2k defense on your knights, just because of the electrocute damage, so that Tama has an easier time healing it up again with something like 12 to 16k HP, and then it's just as fast as possible. Of course, keep in mind, if you run Aureus, you need more stats than that, and Fluri basically needs less because she has her own heal. Now comes the difficult part. There are a lot of combinations, so please forgive me when I forget some units. I made some kind of categories, one being death breaking damage dealer, the second one being supportive type. I call those units that help turn cycling like that, and the last one being raw damage dealer. So let's start with death breaking damage dealer. I think the best units in here are Luluka, Helga, Iseria and Baal and Cezanne. All of them have very good chances to provide 2 turns of defense break while still being able to do some good damage. Whereas Baal and Cezanne is the only one providing slow, Iseria can target with Song of Stars, and Helga gives attack buff on top of effectiveness, which helps your Tamarin removing the defense buff from the boss. Luluka is definitely the best damage dealer out of all of them, and she can even help your team survive a little bit better thanks to her S2. Let's talk about supportive type. Schuri, Landy and Roozid. Schuri is probably the best of them in my opinion, since he helps generating lots and lots of turns while still being able to provide some decent damage. Landy is also dealing pretty good damage, but besides her S3 only pushing herself, even though having speed buff helps a lot, that's for sure. Roozid probably is harder to build as a DPS since his base stats are very low, but he can provide attack break, slow debuff, speed buff and CR push as well. A lot of units can work as raw damage healer, so I'm just going to say something about the 3 best that crossed my mind, being Luna, top model Luluka, and Sermia. Luna, there isn't much to say other than that she can deal some pretty nasty damage and pushes herself with her S1 if you give her the exclusive equipment. Top model Luluka also dealing pretty good damage and still having a little push for the team and self-attack buff on her S2. Yeah, I know I could have put her on the supportive type as well, but I don't think that she would be on the same team in terms of manipulating the turns like the other 3 there. Sermia on a fast DPS build is probably going to deal very high damage as well, and like Tomoka, even removing the electrocute buff on her from time to time. So let's go over the stats for DPS units. Of course, if you are relying on debuffs, 85% effectiveness is needed. Speed should always be 200 or faster to ensure that you get a good amount of turn cycling in there. But besides that, try to aim for around 1k def and 10k HP, or any balance between those 2 stats will do. After that, just as much damage as possible. Keep in mind that if your decision on units end up on a low amount of non-attack skills, all tank stats that are needed for that go up for knights as well, because electrocute will hit more often. While finding a combination for yourself, you should always keep in mind to have at least 1 defense breaking unit in there. You can even use Cerise and Schuri on Miss Confile to provide a defense break. And here you see my team. Its average is around 800,000 damage on full auto, but my Tama has no effectiveness and is on Celestine, so it definitely could be better. There's also a video with Fluri, Roozid, Schuri, and one with Luna, Iseria and Lilias from other YouTuber that I will put down a link in the description. But keep in mind, those 3 videos that I will link there are all from before the turn, res and HP adjustment of the bosses. If I was be able to help some of you building a team, feel free to leave a like and let me know if I should make that about the other expeditions as well. So good luck and have fun farming.